If I could fill up all the chasms in your heart, then I could bury it in the basement of your parents' house.
Yo, what's going on? And welcome to the Part-Time Artist Podcast. This is episode 182. Damn, I should have put a Blink song on in the beginning, but whatever. Shout out to Blink. Before we get into this show here, I want to let you guys know that War Park has announced our tour. That's right. My band War Park is hitting the road. Be sure to follow War Park Music on all the social stuff. It would be great to see some podcast people. I already had some podcast guests reach out to me that they'll be stopping by when we hit the road, which is probably the coolest thing in the fucking world. But aside from that, what's coming up is Camp Punksylvania. I have a link in the podcast description to get your tickets to Camp Punksylvania, and we can hang out, we can camp, we can tell stories, play songs, you know, all that good stuff. Camp Punksylvania is probably the best music festival ever. Yeah, click the link, get tickets, super cheap. There's also going to be a link down there for DistroKid and Visible. Visible. DistroKid is how you can get your music on all the streaming services. That's what I use. So if you click that code, you'll get 7% off. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, Visible. Visible code if you want a cheap cell phone network. It's Verizon's network, and you can download it's an electronic SIM card. You can go through the whole process, get a new phone number, whatever, in like 10 minutes. So if you are looking for a new cell phone provider and you don't want to pay more than $25 a month, you should do what I do and jump on Visible. The whole reason I have these links is because I actually use these things. So yeah, but the best way to support me, honestly, if you want to support the podcast, is to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review on the podcast platform if you're a listener. But really, YouTube is my main passion. I love making videos, and I love putting things out there that is going to inspire and empower other artists. So please interact with this video on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up, give it a comment, and subscribe to the channel. All right, I have with me a very, very special guest hailing from the land that is New York City. I have Mike from Nihiloceros. Now, if you don't know Nihiloceros, and you've never seen Mike before, first of all, he's been on the podcast before. You can go back in the archive. But also, if you've ever asked me for advice or asked me about the New York music scene, chances are I've pointed you in the direction of this guy right here. Because you, Mike, have just been one of those dudes that, to me, has risen above everything, man, because New York, and I was just in New York this past weekend playing a gig at the Bushwick Public House, and I was thinking, man, I spotted a Full-Time Aesthetic sticker, so shout out to Full-Time Aesthetic. I was like, man, this is like, in the past 10 years, this is like one of the few places that's like still here. And when I was living in New York, I think every place that I played in like the 10-year span I was gigging is gone.
A lot of them are, yeah.
It's gone. So that can be really discouraging in that scene. So the fact that you've been there and you're, you know, pulling through no matter what do you attribute like that kind of investment? Like, do you just kind of feel like no matter what, I'm down with New York, this is where I'm at, I just love it here, no matter what's going on in the music scene, I'm just here for it?
Yeah, I mean I was like that in Chicago too. It just, you know, they're very different cities, but I operate the same no matter where I'm living. So if I moved to Vermont, I think I'm going to do the same thing.
Right.
but I think, I mean, it definitely took some getting used to after moving here. The constant shuttering of music venues.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens but it happens here in a way that I experienced. So I think there's like, you just gotta. I learned early on you have to get used to just, there are venues that have come and gone before I even had the chance to play, and you're like, oh, like I don't know, like I don't know. There's just so many. I was gonna start listing off venues that like came and went. That could be a whole podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before we get into the show here, I want to ask you, like, it's summertime now, and I wanted to ask you, dude, like, and I saw this like somewhere on the internet, like there were some musicians like asking, like, hey, it's like summertime now, it's like slow season for a lot of people, like, if you're a musician, what kind of job do you have or whatever? So I wanted to ask you, if you've ever had a summer job, what was your favorite summer job, and what kind of summer job do you think would be good for a musician or an artist?
Favorite summer job? I always had like shitty summer jobs.
Nice.
Like, they were like, I mean, I was like a cater waiter, and I did construction, and I did landscaping, and it was all like stuff that, like, was good for like cash, like you didn't have to pay taxes, your money was yours, it was yours immediately, that sort of thing. But they were all like highly like labor intensive and hard, and it was never like, I had friends that were like lifeguards and stuff, and like that. I mean, or like worked at like an ice cream shop. That's the dream. To have like a summer, it just screams like summer, like high school summer.
Yeah, for me, it's always going to be summer camp. I'm going to just say that summer camp, working a summer camp is the best thing in the world. But I actually just started as a cater waiter, and I know exactly what you're saying, because no matter what you get paid with some of these jobs, it feels like you're still getting ripped off somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be because it can be like, especially those jobs where you're on your feet the entire time. Now, let's get into Dark Ice Balloons a little bit. This is your new album, and I got a little bit of a heads up on this because I wrote, for those that don't know, I'll put a link in the description, but I posted a review for Punk News for the single, which is Skipper. So you guys can check that out. I just wrote a few words about the single and how I was eager to hear the rest of the album.
Thank you.
Well, you did put a gun to my head, so I didn't have much of a choice. But I guess something I did want to ask you in relation to that is, why did you choose Skipper of all the tunes? You have what, 7 or 8, I guess? What was it about Skipper that stood out to you?
Yeah, 8 songs. We decided, we weren't sure when we were putting out how many singles we wanted to do. We ended up with doing 4, and I think that's kind of was what I wanted to do. But we tossed around 3 or 4. But it was kind of really tough this was like, probably harder choices for like single rollout that I've done in recent years. Because we had a lot of different opinions, and I sent it to, when the record was like, when we got the masters back, I was constantly changing either which song I thought was the most powerful, which had the most gravitas as far as like what would grab a listener when they're listening, or which one was my favorite. And that just kept changing, and I really just couldn't get any sort of like bearings on what I thought would be like. And also too, we hadn't put anything out in like 3 years, which like isn't like a million years, but right. I wanted to make sure that like, it was the first like out of the pandemic, like not in like Self-Destruct came out in 2021, but we were still like in the middle of things being weird. So this is like the first like, it was like, it's a short LP, but it's an LP, and it came out after the pandemic, and I wanted to be like, no, we're still a band in real times, real normal times and all that stuff. And so I was really sort of in my head as to what would be that introduction back to us putting out new music would be.
Right, okay.
And I don't know, Skipper just like, it was weird, but in like it wasn't the most overtly catchy. Um, it wasn't. Um,
Good old Spectrum, guys. This is what Spectrum does.
Worm. It had the weird like bass synthy, part in the chorus.
Yeah.
Alex and I both sang, which is like something that we've always kind of done but haven't done. We leaned into it a little bit more on this one. So I thought it was just like it did a lot of stuff that was very much us, but also it did a lot of stuff that wasn't so obviously us in a way that was still us. That sort of felt like the best way back to put out something that was familiar but also very different.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was picking up when I was, digesting it and putting the words down for Punk News. I was like, this is so 100% you guys. It's 100% Nihilocerous, but there's something about this that is so different. And then when I listened to the rest of the album, I think the first time I actually did listen to the record, like from start to finish, I think I was driving somewhere and I don't remember where I was, but I actually did come to, like, I pulled over, I came to a stop when I finished it, and it was the last song on the record where I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I pulled over and I think I even texted you. I was like, dude, this song Purgatory, oh my God, it hit me right away. And it's so funny because you and I are going to be sharing the stage in Brooklyn in August at Purgatory, which is such a crazy synchronicity. And I wanted to kick off the show with that tune, so let's just jump right into it. This tune is called Purgatory. Check it out.
If I could fill up all the chasms in your heart, then I could bury it in the basement of your parents' house. Everyone loves to love a love song, sick or not. So I want you to know that I do it all for love.
Morning's hidden promise, there's a black spot on the sun. Dots of fire, time spun. Fold into melted earth, walking dirt and puddles of. They found us holding hands in the flood. Where now did you go? Where did you go? Where did you go? Where did you go? Why did you call this afterlife? Where now did you go? Where did you go? Where did you go? Where did you go? Why did you call this afterlife?
The countdown ticker, broken plasma of your heart. We still pace the floors, pace the floorboards of this stranger's house. I've gone and woke the living dead, you've come undone. But I still ask myself, do you fall apart for fun?
Morning's hidden promise, there's a black spot on the sun. And dots of fire, time spun. Fold into melted earth, walking dirt and puddles of. They found us
right, that tune was called Purgatory, and that's my favorite tune on the record. And I would love if you could just share some words about that song, where that song come from, how did it come about? Because I think Al has like a big role in that song. I think Al takes over on the verses for most of them, right?
Yeah. It's sort of so Alex is the verses, I'm the pre-chorus, and then we're both singing on the chorus.
Yeah.
But even on the chorus, sort of the backing. And it's funny because that song almost didn't make it on the record.
Oh my god.
Because we were like, we never really set out. We write songs. Like once we feel like we have a collection of like something that feels like a thing, we start thinking about a record and like how we want to present that, and like, you know, is there a through line, like story wise, or is it just like a random collection of songs, blah blah blah. However, we put out records over the years, but when we're just writing songs, we're just writing songs, but we don't really think, oh, we're gonna do these. This is gonna be a 6-song record or what. So that wasn't really ever part of the conversation. But when we were like deciding what we were gonna record and what we were gonna toss, we had 7 songs that were ready, like had been like already demoed, and we're going into the studio in a couple of weeks, and these are gonna be the 7 songs. And I think because we put out Self Destroy as like a long 6-song EP, we really wanted whatever we put out to be long enough to be able to technically qualify as a short LP. So 7,
right.
And we're like, well, if you do 8, that's a short LP. It's unlike, much like having a long EP, it's a short LP. So having that 8th song at the like, you know, the 11th hour became kind of important to us, and we didn't have anything. Like we had already like tossed out all the garbage stuff and had 7 songs that we had like demoed and worked on, that like Gurman had like come up with drum parts for, that Alex and I had written like, you know, like lyrics and melodies, and like, that were actually songs. And Alex is like, don't you have like one more song in you that we could just like, and I'm like, I don't have anything else that's like ready to go or ready to work. I'm like, do you have anything else that you've been working on? And neither one of us had anything that was like ready enough to be able to throw into a record in like a handful of days. And he dug out that song was actually a demo that him and or the original of that song, he found a demo in his email that we had been working on 10 years ago together, that him and his wife, or it wasn't at the time, but Amanda, his girlfriend at the time, they were like writing this collection of like summer songs in GarageBand that they were just like making with each other at home on their computer. And there was a demo, an earlier version of that song that they had recorded together, that he had positioned early on when he had joined the band back in those days as a song for us to like turn into a song. And we ran it. We wrote it, and I think on the demo I had done like some guitar and some melody stuff, and then we had worked on it like to try to get into like the practice space and play it like, wow, you know, in the rooms back then, but it just never like landed anywhere. So we threw it in the trash, and it's been sitting in the email for 10 years. And he put out, like, what if we turned this into a song? So like there was no words, there was words, but they were like fake, you know, like gibberish words, and the parts weren't finished, and there was like a garage band drum beat on it. And I was like, there's no way Gurman's not gonna write drums to this, because he has to go and track drums first in like a week or so. And it's like, it's pretty straight. I was like, it's pretty straightforward. Gurman's a great drummer. He'll come up with something, and it's not one of those songs like some of the other ones where the interesting beat is what's driving the song. You just gotta like write some rock to the song, and it'll be good. And I was like, all right. So Gurman listened to the demo once, came up with what, tracked it the next day in the studio, and then we recorded the song to it, and I rewrote the lyrics and whatever. But I think we even kept the synth part. It's the only song on the record that has synth, and the synth part. Record, I believe, is either the original synth from the GarageBand file, or we might have like uploaded the MIDI into like Ableton or whatever it was we were using to replace it with notes. But it is actually the synth MIDI demo from 10 years ago. So it almost didn't make it on, and we actually just like, it was an 11th hour like, add-on to make an 8th song.
Unbelievable! Wow. It does have like there is something about it that stands a little bit. It feels like it stands on its own versus the other tunes, and I think maybe that's why it just caught me by surprise at the end, because like in my head it was the type of song where I was like, oh, like there's like this is hitting a climax in the story, like the record is going to go in a different direction now or whatever, and then the record was over. I was like, oh wow, like wait a minute, shit, that was the grand finale or whatever. Like it was such a like I went on such a roller coaster, like just after, and even I was listening to the record also like on shuffle to give it like a different context. And like there were where Purgatory was showing up was creating such a different, architecture for like the landscape of it from song to song. Now, one thing I do want to ask about the architecture of this record. First of all, dark ice balloons. What the fuck does that even mean? What is a dark ice balloon? Where did you come up with that?
Well, so like the record whole is sort of, at least the way sort of like it's like either like a continuation or a response to where we left off with self-destroy. Self-destroy was like all about, and again, most of the lyrics written pre-pandemic, but all about just like the absurdity of existing and just like the whole like what is existence and what makes us human and like what's the point, and if you pull back far enough it's all meaningless anyway, blah blah blah. And that was like a really like petty, dark place for me to take myself when I was writing for that. It was literally saying like, what is the point of me writing the words that I'm writing right now for this record? Why are we as a band even putting out this record and making these sounds? Because and one day none of us are going to exist, and it's all just going to, even if first of all, we're rapidly destroying our planet. We're as a species, we're going to evolve into something else at some point. This planet won't even be around, or if it even is, the creatures here will have evolved into something they can't even see or understand, or so all this legacy, all this everything that we do and everything we put out to be remembered and understood and expressed. All of those things are completely meaningless. And I wrote that not really tongue in cheek, but I wrote that seriously as like one way that I was viewing the world. But then after like spending months with that, it sort of felt like I took on, kind of like when an actor plays a character for too long and you can't really shake it. Like that sort of became a part where I'm like, and it was really like sort of dark. Luckily, I went to Egypt right after the record came out and experienced the beginning of humanity right after writing about how like ridiculous the idea of being human is, and seeing the like swimming in the Nile and touching the pyramids and seeing the beginning of civilization was like a total mindfuck after like having lived in this world for so long. We approached writing again. I was like, I feel like there's more to say. The way that we left it as a band wasn't the way that I wanted to like continue the story. So I was like, even though I'm not like a person, I consider myself extremely spiritual, and what that means changes, I think, from time to time. But I wanted to explore death and existence in a way that was a little more hopeful, which is still a record about dying and about
a little
like
less
not
nihilistic for Nihiloceros.
Yeah. So a lot of the records, it basically presumes different scenarios of what like an afterlife would be. So it's not religious in any capacity, in any sort of like Judeo, Christian or, Eastern, Western religious, like anything. It's really just from a spiritual standpoint. And it toys with some of those ideas that are like inherently religious, like the ideas of heavens and hells and, Dante's Inferno and the rapture and all that stuff. So those little like Easter eggs are all buried in there, but they're all just like, it's really just like, what if instead of blinking into nothingness at the end of all of this, which is what we presumed on the last record, what if this happened? Or what if, you came back as this? Or what if reality continued on in some sort of parallel way like this? And so that was the approach that the record took lyrically. And Dark Ice Balloons is the first line in Penguin Wings, which is the track. And really that song, I think, as the opening track, sets the tone for a lot of like the worlds that the record lives in, because it like a dark ice balloon is like a frozen hot air balloon, and a hot air balloon that's made of ice can't fly. Penguin can't fly. Like penguin wings, digital organs. So it really early on is supposed to set the tone that like the physical world that we all know, the world of science and reality, is not the world of this like supernatural beyond that in whatever fashion these different songs are taking you into these different worlds.
Right.
You're supposed to know right off the bat that you're not living in our physical realm.
Yeah, the way I did pick up on that, because when you do say, so first of all, there's a few things that I really love about your music and I love about your band. One of them is the fact that you have a lead bass player. I feel confident in saying that. I love that you have a lead bassist. But
we made a point to have zero action. There's not a proper guitar solo anywhere on the record.
Yeah.
And so that really leaned into like the lead bass parts because there's no real guitar solos on this record.
Shout out to all the bass players. This album's for you. But aside from that as well, the lyrics and the words, like you're not giving it to us on easy mode. Like you're giving it to us in a way where it's like you're gonna need to cut your food. You know, you can't just pick it up and put it in your mouth and be done. Like you need to take your time with this record to digest it. And Penguin Wings, when you bring all that stuff up, it was like thinking about the other perspective of things, because penguins are birds that can't fly. So do they have wings or do they have flippers? But then you think about when they dive underwater, when we're swimming, it kind of looks like we're flying. And if there are fish underneath us looking at us on the surface, they might think that we're flying in a way.
It's all about perspective.
It's all about the perspective. So that's why I was like, damn, there's definitely something here with this album title that begs the question.
And that's great, because as a lyricist, I've always, like, whenever people are like, what's that song about? Like, it's never that it's not about anything, but I even in the abstract, like I write lyrically and always have about specific instances that I'm feeling. So it might be an actual, like, there might be a very real moment in my history that this is like about this person or about this thing that I'm writing about. But I always have strived, and hopefully I succeed some of the time, to write it in a way where it's more like the emotion or the feeling behind what I felt in that moment or in that experience. Can I relate that into a way where then you as the listener can take that on and ascribe that to something that you're going through, that you're experiencing, so that your perspective colors what the song's about. So like, so the song, I've never wanted the song to be about, if I wanted to write a song about, like, I dated this girl and she broke my heart, and then I would just, but I want to take an experience like that and write it in a way that when you listen to it, it could be about your mom, or it could be about, you know, something you're going through with a friend, or something like, you know what I mean? Something can be different. I once wrote a song about breaking up with my sobriety that everyone thought was a breakup song, but it was really about my relationship with my addiction. And I've always wanted it to be about, speaking of the perspective, is I want your perspective to be because how you feel and what you hear is what the song is. Because who the fuck cares what I have to say? It's what are you hearing?
Wow. Yeah. Like it almost feels like, kind of, when I listen to your music, I think of it as if I was walking into a museum and kind of looking at the artwork. And that's the most, like, that's what I appreciate the most, aside from the bass solos. The bass solos are cool too. But let's jump into another tune here. This is a tune that also features Amanda. This tune is called Martian, Wisconsin. Check it out.
Dance like fireflies. Won't talk, madam or mister. Snapshots in silver. This Martian, Wisconsin, earthcraft recovered. This Martian, Wisconsin, he drove here all the way.
right, that tune was called Martian, Wisconsin, and you can get everything on nihilosphorus.bandcamp.com. We have cassettes, we have vinyls, and speaking of which, you owe me a cassette, by the way, just saying. Because I did buy the album for, I don't know, I think I bought it for like $25 or something in the beginning.
I don't. They would on our Bandcamp, so you can have whatever format you would like it in.
All right, I would like a cassette and a hot sauce, please. Now,
Cool.
I mentioned before that Mike and I are going to be playing together on the same bill at Purgatory in Brooklyn this summer in August. It is our tour kickoff show for War Park. We have not toured since before the pandemic. So, and this is actually our second attempt at touring. Our first tour, the whole thing fell through. So this go-around is going to be like a pretty religious, spiritual experience for us, because we did, like, you had mentioned to me before that you're a believer in momentum, and when we were going into the pandemic, it felt like we had all the momentum in the world.
Yeah.
And it really had us questioning whether or not we were even going to continue. Like, I left New York. I was like, I can't be here anymore. This is done for me. And you and I also are not really natively from New York. So I wanted to ask you, because you're so much stronger and more of a warrior than I am, to be able to stick through in New York through the pandemic and came out on the other side. What is it about New York? Let's do like a past, present, future thing. What drew you to New York to begin with? What keeps you there now? And what do you foresee with New York in terms of the music scene and you personally?
What drew me to New York in the first place? I'm from Chicago. My wife is from Chicago, and she was more acting at the time, and I was obviously playing music. Both of us love Chicago, and New York and Chicago are similar in the grand scheme of things. But I think we both had outgrown Chicago and just went, not like it was, bro, we're done with Chicago, but it was more like we wanted something bigger. We wanted something more. When I had toured through New York as a Chicago band, I always loved playing here. Sarah loved New York. I think we both just, every time we would visit, we would never get enough. We'd be like, we just got to keep going back to do more things. Why don't we just move there? And the bass player in my band at the time had the idea of moving to New York. He never made it, so he's still actually in Chicago. But all of those things together sort of like pushed us to go. Right. And I moved ahead of the band and started booking shows, and they were flying out to like play shows while we were figuring it out. So I sort of just like spearheaded migrating music from Chicago to New York, and it turned out completely in a way that I didn't expect, because I'm playing with different people, and it did end up being a different project and everything. But that's how I got here and why I got here. What was the second question is what keeps me here?
What keeps you here now?
It's the friends and the people and the scene and the energy. I mean, it's all of it. It's all the reasons why New York is awful and awesome is all wrapped up in one big tangled of noise and energy. And for now, it suits me well. And the people, there's so many just like amazing people I've met here who I either interact with, or I'm lucky enough to be married to, or being in a band with. And also too, not to say I'm any stronger than you as far as sticking in New York during the pandemic. I was lucky enough, not only do I have a wife to lean against when things get tough, who's amazing and super supportive of everything I do, but right before the pandemic Sarah and I moved into, bought a house, or our bassist bought a house, which is where I am right now. And we rent stairs. So being 2/3 of the band being together with like one of my best friends and bandmate, and another one of my best friends who's his wife, and my wife, all living in the same house. Definitely, that's kind of a support system that,
that's the dream,
is just
right? Like, For real.
And literally it was November of 2019. We moved here with just the whole idea, because I was in Sunset Park for 7 years, which was like my commute to shows and practice and all this. Like I was like grinding, because I would spend like 5 hours a day on the subway because I was nowhere near where all
Oh my
stuff
God,
happened.
dude.
November of 2019, we moved here with the hopes that like this is just going to make my life so much easier, because now I'm going to be like, I'm in Redwood, right where I practice, right where we play. I don't have to spend 5 hours a day on the subway. And right after that happened, like a few months later, the entire world shuts down. I'm like, I just got. So but that's like, that sucked at the time, but I could not. And Sarah and I talk about this sometimes. I could not imagine having had to have lived the pandemic that far south in Brooklyn alone, without the connection to like friends and bandmates and community. Not to mention if I were like single and living down, like there's just so much that I'm lucky to have been able to like have here that kept me sane and grounded and okay.
Yeah, it's all about that community. And speaking of which, let's give some people some free game here.
Yeah.
From you. If they want to play in New York, let's give 3 spots that you recommend playing, and maybe 3 other bands besides your band. 3 other bands maybe you recommend playing with.
Ooh, that's so hard. 3 spots that are great to play right now. Purgatory, where we're playing in August, is definitely one of my favorite spots. Queer run, DIY venue that's, a great space for the community. Main Drag is back, which you recently played. I've recently played, really, but I think last time I saw you in New York a few weeks ago, maybe that was longer ago, no, not that long ago, was at Main Drag. The Main Drag has reopened in a new space as the new Main Drag, and is putting on cool shows. So I really do love that spot. And you know what? I gotta throw it to Our Wicked Lady. I mean, the list could go on and on and on, but Our Wicked Lady will remain the home of so many of us here.
Yeah.
They have their mission and their ethos and everything that they opened for in the first place, and what they remain to do, and the people that own it have continued to be supportive of the community, and we're like a safe haven and a North Star throughout the pandemic, and worked harder than anyone to pivot through all the weird regulations and the rules and the changes and the laws to keep a place for people to go to safely be able to like see music in the different forms that they were allowed to at the time.
Yeah.
Like our 80 during the pandemic was like, I mean, that they saved a lot of people. Like it was so our
Yeah. Those are definitely 3 great spots, and all 3 in Brooklyn. So definitely head out there to Brooklyn. What about 3 friends you can just think of off the top of your head? No, in no order whatsoever, because I know we could go on, and I'm sure once I stop recording, you're gonna think of like 20 more people that you could have named, but like 3 off the top of your head.
Flashpoint off the top of my head, Debbie Dopamine, probably one of the best underrated. Not that they're not, heralded for what they are, but that band should be like ginormous, and they're not, and they should be.
They're on their way.
But Debbie Dopamine, yeah, and I mean, seriously, Katie is one of the most prolific songwriters and talented people I've ever met. And Zach and Dylan are amazing. So yeah, definitely Debbie Dopamine. Alithios, who shared a label with us, that whole crew is doing some of the most like beautiful, innovative, romantic music around. And I don't know. Free to Kill. Always. Yeah, always. I mean, they crush it every time, and they're just so good at what they do.
Yeah. And from the outside, it looked like Punk Island went well. It looked like the scene is still there in New York.
I was hanging out with Nick at Punk Island. We talked, War Park thing. tour and booking and music being fun and music being hard and family and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Punk Island is just one of those things that's hard for me to miss, but it's one of the sacrifices that I make in order to, you know, kind of have my roots more in the ground here in Philly, which I love. But I will be back. I'm going to probably apply next year. We'll see how it goes. And we're going to be in New York with you to kick off August. Stoked for that. Stoked for your new album out. Everybody head over to nihilosris.bandcamp.com and you can click their link tree, which has the most links I've ever seen in a link tree. There's plenty to do.
The issue is that we started getting all this press for the record, and like I'm just like, well, I got to put in the link tree.
Oh, you poor thing.
I need no. But what I mean is, it doesn't all need to be there, or at least I don't know how to like organize it. So I just put it. It's like Alex describes it as like, you know, grandma's attic or whatever, where you just keep putting stuff up there, and he's right. So like, you know,
my God.
I'm a bit of a hoarder.
I'm a link tree hoarder. All right, well, we're going to send it off. This last tune is the second tune on the new record. It is called Killing Ghost. Rip on, everybody.
If I were satin, stone, and plaster, a sculpture, mine of memory, you are my steel, cold, and laughter. We'd fill the world far as we could see. We died with a ghost on charcoal and rose, swam straight for the roads, no echo. Wood wash, comb mixed alabaster, crack the glass, rinse, mortar, dream. You killed me once outside and after. Smiled